I fooled myself into thinking that I could somehow convey that I was fine. I felt like I could play God with death. There was no need to be scared or anxious, but I couldn't help but wish I could go back in time and frighten them. Even if no one can perceive me, I will be present. I even contemplated showing up to my own burial as a sign. A great deal of my mental anguish came from worrying about how they would react if they discovered my corpse on the bed. I was worried about my fiancé, but I trusted my caregivers, so I tried to keep my cool. All of a sudden, my senses were heightened, and I felt intense love. Surprisingly, we ended up at that area of positive energy. It left me in amazement. One must see it in order to fully comprehend or come into contact with it. The climax occurred in an instant due to the rapid pace of events in that universe. It was like I was a traveler discovering a huge valley for the first time. Beautiful, tranquil, and quiet. Those were the adjectives used to describe the location. I kept walking in the direction of the sound of music because it seemed to come out of nowhere. The closer I got, the more gorgeous the gate became. Because of its magnificence and beauty, I was taken aback. I have no prior experience with it. It was so huge and towering that I couldn't even discern the peak. I would be completely outsized by its height even if I lay down to gaze above. I was worried even as I stood there soaking it all in, the scenery, the gate, the decorations, and the calming music. I began to wonder whether it was even relevant for me to be worried. For the time being, it appeared like everything was well. It was inevitable that I would probe the newcomer with profound inquiries about the world's history, Jesus' whereabouts, and the veracity of their claims on entering this gate. The purpose of life is to seek truth, not to just survive. Not to brag. Oh, finally, I'm with Jesus. But to question, I stood at the gate hoping to be greeted by someone, preferably Jesus, considering that my family was Christian. I did nothing but stand there and wait. I didn't get tired of looking at the scenery, even though it felt like it went on forever. The scenery was just stunning. This is unquestionably the place to be, I thought. Not only was there music, but I was also standing there. At one point, it felt like someone or something was putting pressure on my heart. I tried to pinpoint where my unease was coming from and looked within to see if I really wanted to go there. I was debating whether to remain or depart. The realization that I couldn't pass the fence suddenly dawned on me. If I went back to those gates, I knew deep down that I wouldn't come back, because it would be the final chapter. Kept telling myself that there are a lot of reasons I won't be able to travel. I just do not have the skills to do it. My heart desires it, but alas, I am unable. First, I thought of my fiancée. It was our routine for her to get in touch with me first thing in the morning. One of us would contact the other. She would eagerly await my arrival. If she ever wanted to find me, she could just swing by the apartment, open the door, and there I would be, laying in bed. Please, that shouldn't have occurred, I pleaded. My goodness, I didn't intend for her to see that. In addition to my family and everything else in my life, I don't think everyone who has told me the future of my life has been dishonest. The things that other people had predicted would happen in my life really did. The obvious poor decision led me to conclude that this couldn't be the case. This is not the moment to pass away. The fact that passing over it will be the end is something I still can't wrap my head around. My problem with that approach is that people would think I was stoned or high. They would come up with any reason to justify my death since they don't know any different. I stood there making my point. It was as if someone had pushed me from a great height, and I crashed back into my body. Like a deafening silence, it was a contradiction that summed up the experience. As soon as my consciousness returned to my body, I snapped out of my fainting episode. I scowled and said, "No, no, no, it can't be. That neighborhood is known for its abundant love and positive energy, which is why I made that statement. There you will feel immense happiness, fulfillment, security, and magnificence. All of these emotions are real for you. It is conceivable to perceive both visually and orally. Although you have actually been there, the effects of time dilation make it seem like you never were. I contemplated ending my life or going back to sleep because it was so amazing. I stumped my foot on the pillow and screamed out, 'No, no, no,' from my heart. It was not a desire to die that made me wish to return, but rather the abundance of great energy and beautiful love that surrounded me. Because of how comfortable it was, I wanted to remain. Unfortunately, I soon realized it was impossible. You have made a triumphant comeback to this realm of the living. That would have been it if you had entered via the gate. Evaluate all the possible outcomes. Oh, look at you go again. You played a role in it. Without a doubt, it will top all other events in your life. As I sat on the bed, lost in thought, I glanced at the clock. Clocking in at roughly 5:30 a.m., I decided it wasn't worth it to keep quiet and reached out to someone. Couldn't think of anyone else to contact except a Florida-based acquaintance of mine. I knew she worked the night shift, so the thought crossed my mind that she might have already been home. Calling her was the one I went with. "At what hour are you trying to reach me via phone?" As she took up the phone, she asked, "What's happening?" "Hey, you know what, sis?" It was a cry from me. I have returned from the abrupt end of my existence. "What?" she asked, her voice betraying her complete and total sense of shock. "I did, in fact, rise from the dead." I repeated, "What a remarkable and unique meeting." I relayed what had happened to her. She patiently listened as I recounted the events of the past 30 minutes. She went straight to bed after the call finished. About 6 in the morning, I rolled out of bed and departed from the room. As I looked around before leaving, I thought, wow, what an experience I had. In that instant, it felt like all of my possessions, cars, money, clothes, and jewelry, were worthless. It rendered them feel worthless and unimportant. My library was my most prized possession. It was an intense need to peruse my library's holdings that sent me racing to the living room. I held back from fully embracing it. Thought, this is knowledge that many people don't have. My heart overflowed with thankfulness as I received it. A lot of people become missiled because they don't know any better. Having gone through all these emotions upon my return, I knew I had improved. Making money is completely unrelated to this. Kindness, love, and compassion, as well as healthy connections, are the most important things. You should attend to the demands of the other person because the God situation is another person. God is revealed to us when we look at another individual. It all makes sense now that I've gone through this. People are always irritated. Nobody can put aside their biases and come to a consensus. In contrast, there is no religion, animosity, or fear in the hereafter. All come together to form a unified front. When it comes to it, nobody can claim victory. Because of that defining moment in my life, I've evolved considerably. I can tell you from personal experience that this is completely out of the ordinary as we speak. For the past 10 years, I kept it bottled up inside. Currently, I've chosen to include it in a book that compiles narratives of near-death experiences. A realization dawned on me. There are numerous ways to die. When I say 1,000, it's just a metaphor. In fact, there are incalculably more ways to meet your doom. My parents' openness to various faiths and philosophical perspectives allowed me to cross many boundaries as a child. The most important thing is to keep everything in balance, and after viewing many religions and sects, I realized that there is truth in every one of them. As I continued to examine the situation, it became increasingly clear that both sleeping and dying are synonymous with death. That is how death works, because we can't predict when or if we'll open our eyes again. Every time we blink, we endanger our lives. By saying, "The girl is not dead but sleeping," Jesus gave his followers a new perspective on death. It makes me think about that. I will be forever indebted to it for the enormous influence it had on my life. It doesn't frighten or anger me in the least. Because I believe it is crucial, I am really looking forward to telling you about this experience. I appreciate you giving me a voice and a place to tell my experience. Thanks a ton.